friend. I'm sitting here with butterflies in my stomach because what you are going to hear is, well, it's something different. Because if you've been following my work, you might know me from Legal Innovation Simplified. It's a podcast I created for lawyers who wanted to shake things up in their profession. And if this is your first time here, welcome. You're warmly welcome. And you're about to witness something pretty raw and real this time. You see, I've been going through a transition, and it's not just with this podcast, but with, well, all of it. My identity, my work, my mission in this world. And I realized that if I'm going to talk about freedom and pivots and brave leaps, I need to be willing to take them myself and also talk about them. So here we are. This is the Freedom Pivot, and it's a space where your heart meets strategy for your brave leap, whatever that might look like. My name is Hannele Korhonen, and I'm no longer just talking to lawyers. I'm talking to you, the purpose-driven, professional, beautiful soul who feels that tug towards something more, something truer, something that finally feels like home and your own truth. But before we dive into what this podcast is becoming, I want to talk about transitions themselves because they are messy. And the word that I use for transition is in-between state. That's something that happens between now and what is known to what's next and what is unknown. And these in-between states can be really uncomfortable, and they require us to sit in that uncomfortableness. Designers call this phase the fuzzy front end, but it's that space where we don't have any answers yet, but we are willing to explore. And that is what I am in right now, and that is a space where I am inviting you to be in with me, and I'm there with you. So here's what I've learned about transitions and these in-between states. They almost always require an identity shift. And the bigger the transition, the bigger the change, the more it requires a shift on your identity level. And these identity shifts can be really terrifying. And I can use this podcast transition as one example. Of course, on the surface, well, it's only a podcast. And hey, I changed the name and I'm targeting a new audience with it. But this is an artifact of a deeper change that is happening in my life and in my work right now. It's happening right now in real time. And for years, I've been the lawyer who does design thinking. And while it was pioneering work and while it was about bringing something new into this profession, it was safe because it was a category of people I understood and what other people understood. And when someone asked what I do, I could say, I help lawyers innovate. And nods would happen around the room. Yes, she helps lawyers innovate. And the lawyer identity was like a lampshade. It gave a shape to my work and it made it digestible. And it also protected me from having to fully stand in my truth. And that's somehow painful to even admit that it was protecting me. Of course, it's wonderful that it was protecting me, but it was also preventing me to fully stand in my truth. Because the thing about lampshades, they dim your light. And then a few months ago, last spring, I started to feel this restlessness. I had all these different brands and I didn't know where to focus, and it was just so blurry. The path that had been so clear to me before suddenly was, I don't know, it was just so messy, and I felt this restlessness that this is not the path for me. And I realized I was hiding behind the lawyer category instead of owning my real mission. And I felt that it was time for me to grow. It was not that I was doing it wrong previously, but it was time for me to expand and grow. And the category of lawyers felt too rigid. And don't get me wrong, I love lawyers and I'm extremely proud of my background as a lawyer. And it's really helpful and it's really valuable skills and mindset and all the expertise. But for me, that's not the only category anymore. And that has felt too rigid. And for the past few months, I've been trying to then understand, okay, what is it then? Is it a new category that I need, or what's the transition like? And I realized that I thrive and I enjoy helping brilliant, heart-led professionals break free from systems that weren't designed for them. And it's about supporting other people through their own identity shifts and their own brave leaps, their own freedom pivots. But stepping into that truth, it also meant that I needed to rip off that lampshade. And it meant standing here saying, here's who I am and here's what I do. I help heart-led professionals start businesses that set them free, for example, without the protection of this neat professional category. And it took me a while to realize that who even am I without that label? Do I exist outside the lawyer label? Can you relate with this thought? Maybe you're not a lawyer, but maybe you have some other title that you are attached to and that is kind of keeping you from growing. This is not my first time in this scary space. And I can share another example that goes back to 2020 when I was transitioning from lawyer to designer. That was even though I had been using design thinking and service design for a long time, but at that time I felt this need to own that title of a designer. And I wrote on LinkedIn in 2020 this long post about my transition. And in that post, I described that in-between state, that transition phase, with these words: I felt for a short while like I was nobody from nowhere. I noticed this concretely at one conference I attended. I had already become painfully aware that new people always ask you, where are you from? Meaning, of course, from which company or from which organization. Prior to that moment, I had always said something like, I'm from this and this company, or this is what I do as my job. But at that time, in that conference, I just said, actually, I am from nowhere. You should have seen the face of the other person who was asking that question. Her eyes rolled and she turned her back looking very scared. Poor her, but also very, very human of her. Because it's the categories that we need to understand. We think that we need to understand another person, another soul. And then when there is no category, when there is no organization or job, like, who are you? And it's kind of mirroring your own insecurities. Very, very human, very, very, to which I can feel very deep compassion about. But at the same time, that is what we share as humans and humankind. That it's scary to be no one from nowhere. But it was such a liberating moment as well, because I realized that behind all those organizations and titles and professional layers, there is still something. There is someone. There is me. I am there. My own voice, my own truth. And there it is, the messy middle, the in-between, that space between who you were and who you are becoming. It was super interesting because at that time, for me, it's helpful to also have some knowledge about these things that happen inside of us and in our inner world. And I looked for research. And I found research on professional identity transformation, very, very cool and fine word. But this research on these identity transformations and identity shifts actually say that this is completely normal. What I was going through and what people are going through in these shifts, they experience a lot of anxiety and they transform through a period of what researchers call emptiness. So there is this emptiness between who you are now and what you are becoming. And that is the brave leap, how you go through that emptiness when you are nobody from nowhere. And even in that space, you own your truth. You own yourself. And you know that you are worthy. And you know that you are someone even though you don't have a clear title yet. And to enter that space, you have to have the courage to let go of the old identity before the new one can emerge. Because otherwise there is no room for that new identity to emerge, if you know what I'm saying. So if you want that shift, make room for it, make space. And that space in between that there is this really, really scary void. But as someone who've gone through many, many transitions, from corporate lawyer to entrepreneur, from law firm owner to a legal tech co-founder, and then to a designer, from lawyer who innovates. Well, there are all these different identities. I'm also a researcher, and now I'm a business coach. What I want you to understand is that the emptiness is not actually empty, because it's just full of possibility. And when you release your grip on who you think that you're supposed to be, that is the moment when you create space for who you actually are. And when you stop trying to fit into existing categories, we can finally design our own. You can finally design your own category. And better yet, maybe you don't need a category at all. Maybe you can just design your life and your role and title and anything in it to be tailor-made just for you, so that it represents fully who you are and also your energy and your soul. And I see this with lovely souls I work with all the time. So it's not just my own experiences. People come to me and they carry this weight of titles that no longer fit. Maybe it's a finance manager who's dreaming of her own gallery, or corporate lawyer who wants to start a design studio, or a consultant who has a vision for social impact work. And they are stuck in what I call golden handcuffs. Careers and titles that look really good on paper, but feel like they are slowly suffocating their souls. And the thought of letting go of those golden handcuffs, it's terrifying, because who are they without those titles? Without that professional identity they've spent years building. But your professional identity was never who you are. It was just one expression of who you are. And it doesn't even mean, like in my case, it was fitting. I was a lawyer at one point. That was the right category for me. And I was a legal tech co-founder at some point. And then I was a designer. And I'm still all of those titles. They are all in my categories, or it's a mix of categories. But when one expression no longer fits, it's not a crisis, but it's an invitation. An invitation to design something new, something that honors both your expertise and your evolution, something that feels like home. And it's interesting that design thinking process, not trying to be too corporate here, but I really love the design thinking process because it actually maps perfectly onto identity transitions as well. Because we start with empathy for our current selves, our future selves, and the people we are meant to serve. And then we crystallize the real problem that we are solving, not just professionally, but existentially. And we come up with new ideas, new possibilities without judgment. What could this look like? And we can just start to free our imagination to see all those possibilities without any limits, without any categories. And we start testing small experiments, like what I did with my podcast. I tested out, and then after some testing period, I noticed that it's time for me to evolve and try something new. And then we test, we iterate, and then we evolve. So this podcast transition is my prototype. And now I'm testing what it feels like to show up without the safety of a category, to speak to the humans behind the job titles, and to trust that my own mission is bigger than any single profession. And what I'm discovering right now, it's freedom. When you stop trying to fit into a box, you give other people permission to step out of theirs too. So if you are listening to this and feeling that tug towards something different, something truer, I see you. And if you are in your own messy middle, questioning everything you thought you knew about your career, your purpose, your next step, you are not lost. You are becoming. And if you're ready to start designing that next chapter, I'm here to support you. There are 2 ways we can work together if you're interested. First, if you're ready for a comprehensive, soulful approach to starting your own business and your brave leap to entrepreneurship, check out the Freedom Incubator. It's my signature program where we use design thinking and AI tools to help you go from idea overwhelm to aligned action. And we are going to launch this September. And it's specifically designed for purpose-driven professionals who want to build businesses that feel like freedom, not another form of captivity. Or if you want more intimate support through your transition, I also offer one-on-one coaching where we can dive deep into your specific situation, your blocks, your vision, and create a roadmap that honors both your heart and your head. You can find all the details in the show note. And you can send me a message. I read every single one. You'll find me on Instagram with handle Curious Hannele, and I'm also on LinkedIn. But before we go, here's what I really want you to know. You don't have to have it all figured out to take the first step, because action creates clarity. You don't need permission to want something different, and you definitely don't need to stay in a category that no longer fits you just because it feels safe. And your transition, whether it's a career pivot or a business launch or complete identity shift, it matters. It's there for a reason. You are called to do something about it. And it's not just about you, but to everyone who's watching you, choose courage over comfort, authenticity over approval. Okay, friend, thank you for being here with me in this new beginning. I so appreciate you. And thank you for witnessing this transition and maybe seeing your own reflected back. Until next time, be gentle with yourself if you're in transition. Trust the process and remember, the in-between state is not a detour from your path. It is the path. I'll see you soon, friend. Bye.